Hey folks, very excited today. We got Joe here from the tour side of the business, here to give us a little insight and history on the stories behind it. Joe, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I recently stepped into a new role, so Director of Pro Tour. Previously, I was the manager of the PGA Tour, so traveling out every week and working off the tour truck with all our staffers, as well as non-staffers. We got a team around me. Before that, I was the Odyssey rep on the PGA Tour for 4 or 5 years. So
oh my God.
Spent 7 or so years now out on the PGA Tour, and just recently started looking after the Champions Tour and Korn Ferry Tour as well. So
I mean, that's such an incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm sure you have quite a few stories under your belt.
Yep.
Is there one particular that's really special to you?
Oh God, they kind of sometimes all blend together. There's some that I tell more than others. There's one that actually recently just happened. We had John Rahm, who's we still take care of, and he still plays all of our equipment. He was in the test center here last week. Kellen Watson, who's one of our reps that works with them, has tried to convince him for a long time to try a mini driver, which has been a very good option for a lot of tour players. It can be a course-dependent club, but sometimes it's a nice secondary tee option. And John has been adamant that he hates the idea of a mini driver. He doesn't understand where it fits into the bag. He loves his 3-wood off the tee, but Kellen finally convinced him to try it, so he built one up. And John said, I'll give you one hit with it, and that might be it. And so we were kind of just getting everybody prepared that, this might be a one and done, and a club might go flying here. It'll just be on the lookout. And sure enough, he tees one up, hits it, draws it, which he doesn't tend to like to see, and loads up and launches the driver, maybe 40 yards downrange. But, we love John, and that's kind of his personality. It was more of a joke because he's kind of teed us up that he was going to do that. But safe to say, John is not a fan of the mini driver, but there are a lot of other guys on tour who loved it, and it's a very useful club in certain aspects, and it's a course-dependent club, but again, it gives them another advantage off the tee if that's what they need another club for.
Yeah, and to kind of feed into that a little bit more, we get this all the time from our customer service. Who is the ideal player for a mini driver?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of the longer players on tour be a little bit more comfortable and willing to put in a mini driver. And it's essentially because they don't have a lot of 3-woods off the deck into par 5s because they're long. They have, maybe long irons more often. And so for those players, they are treating it more like a secondary tee option. So it's not like they're replacing the driver, they're replacing the 3-wood because it's a bigger head than a 3-wood, more forgiving than the 3-wood as a tee option. And so for players, if they want maybe 15 to 20 yards off their driver, but they want something that's gonna be a little bit more forgiving, spin a little bit more, that's been a really good option. There are some players that can hit it off the deck and are comfortable with that, but it's more of a tee option for players who are maybe want another option in case the driver gets a little off. That would be more of like a retail application for it. For the tour players, it's a replacement to a 3-wood.
That's really cool. And considering where you're working with all the tour players all the time, sure, like we said earlier, a lot of cool stories that go with it. Who's probably been the most impactful tour player that you've worked with?
Oh boy, there's a lot that come to mind. I would say, recency bias would certainly favor Xander Schauffele. I mean, he's had an unbelievable year. We spent a lot of time with him. He's been on staff now for 5-6 years, something like that. And he's a player who has just gotten better every single year. And doesn't feel like there's much more that he can improve on, but he's a player that works extremely hard to take his game to the next level. He's a guy that, was knocking at the door of trying to win his first major championship for a few years. I think a lot of people out there in the media were calling him the best player to not have won a major. And that's not a title that a lot of guys like, and he was driven to kind of shed that title. And so to see
he certainly shut that down.
Yes, he did. So to see him kind of bust through at the PGA Championship and then double at the Open Championship, that's really exciting because we work with these guys, we spend a lot of time with them, we really form close relationships, obviously professionally, but even personally. So he's somebody that we care a lot about. We want to help him achieve his goals, and for him to win 2 majors and to have a Callaway hat on front and center for the whole golf world to see. That's why we make the investment in tour and in our players, because we want to be a part of the big moments in golf. And Xander winning 2 majors is certainly an example of that.
That's the prime example.
Yep.
Now, What are some of the things that maybe the average PGA enthusiast or golfer in general wouldn't see that are behind the scenes that you have to work with the players on, whether it's getting clubs out into different major events or just trying to make fixes on the fly? What are some of the challenges that for everyone else it seems like it's a walk in the park, but different?
Yeah, I think it's just we have a different level of preparation now in our job now than we did 5 years ago, and it's really been this evolution of our team from being viewed as just equipment reps to being part of a player's performance team. So we wanted to make that transition from just fixing equipment and fitting them for it to think of an F1 performance team.
Yeah.
Where we have made a huge investment, and we have a whole tour analytics department now that all they do is study the stats from tournament data, and that helps us make educated decisions on how to tell a player to attack a golf course, or how to recommend a different club, or hey, we need to look at this gapping in your bag because the last few tournaments you haven't been as successful in that category. So we're looking at we do things like performance combines every Monday of a tournament week where we're on site, the tour truck is on site Sunday to Wednesday, so the tournament practice round days. But we're giving the caddies and the players a course report for the week. So we look back at historical data from that event, and we understand here's what the players that play well here are doing well and how they attack this golf course. And a lot of players use that as a blueprint for how they need to attack the golf course. And, they have different styles, so some look at it and take more of that info in than others. But it's a really good tool, and one of the examples of how we're giving our players the biggest advantage we can to succeed past just the equipment. Obviously, the equipment's important. It's what we originally do out there, and we want these guys fit for our best clubs and the clubs to help them play their best. But we have taken it a step further in making sure we're not just focused on the equipment looking good on the driving range. We're tracking all aspects of that equipment and really making educated decisions on how we fit those players and how we prepare them to play their best.
And considering how much data you're feeding into the system and trying to fine tune, how often are you fine tuning it? You said you give a scorecard for the week and you kind of define, are you making changes each round? Is it like every tournament you make some fine tune adjustments? How does that kind of revision and fine tuning work?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If the player's playing well, there's probably less that we go into it. We just say, hey, you're doing this well, keep it going. I mean, there's nothing that we can do that makes
don't touch it.
You do you.
Yeah.
Xander, you just keep winning majors.
Yeah, exactly.
For players that maybe aren't having that same success, they probably want to dig into the numbers a little bit more. So that could be a week-to-week thing until they get really comfortable and they're starting to see the success out there. We tell our players that the majority of players that have success, they're not spending all their time on a tour truck. They're spending all their time on the golf course and on the range practicing getting better. The answers aren't always about getting a new set of irons or another new driver. Sometimes it's you got to go to work and this secret's in the dirt sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's about finding that balance, and obviously we're always going to be there for our players, but we want to put them in the best position to succeed, and that's not always fitting them for another driver if we don't think they need it or if they don't need it. So
it's about fine tuning the driver that they already have and making
sometimes
it just better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when they're not on the tour truck or they're not here at the performance center, are you just feeding the data using basically how they perform in tournaments and how they're, do you even take GC quad data and feed that as well?
Yeah.
Or is it all the above?
Yeah, we take all the info we can get. Obviously in practice rounds or on the practice range session, we have the TrackMan or the GC quad there recording all the numbers. And here, especially at the test center at ECPC, we have that there, and we do what we like to call performance combines. So we have we cycle them through 40 shots, something like that, and we have them change after every shot they hit to a different club because tour players can adjust on the fly. So by the time they get to their third 7-iron, and if they're not hitting it good before that, they're going to figure out how to hit it good. So we adjust that, and based on what those numbers say, we make decisions based on the gapping between their clubs or the dispersion. So we can make loft or lie adjustments based on that. So that's something that we do kind of leading up to the week, and then the tournament data is ultimately the most important. What do they do under the gun? What are their tendencies? So we look at that data and publish that data, and we can have a trend report for them Monday morning of the next week to say, here's what you did well in that tournament, here's what maybe you want to work on a little bit more, and start to tailor maybe a practice routine or practice session for what they need. So again, we're making decisions based on a lot of data that 5 years ago we weren't doing.
Wow, I mean, I have to say, golf is certainly transformed, and this era of data is just a whole new way to approach how to improve people's game. And something I know our audience is going to be very interested in. Tell us a little bit about your story. I mean, I'm sure everyone and their mother wants to know, how could I get involved with the tour players like this? You know, this has to have been such a cool and unique journey. Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I grew up around the golf industry. My dad has
From Carlsbad?
I was born in Wisconsin, moved out to Carlsbad pretty early on. My dad was in the golf industry for a long time, still is. And so followed him out there and just followed in his footsteps really on. It was a passion. I grew up playing golf, played golf in college, tried to play on the mini tours for a little while, realized probably later than I should that I wasn't good enough. So if I wasn't ever going to make it to the PGA Tour, the next best thing would be helping guys get there and working on the PGA Tour and helping guys achieve their dreams. So everyone who does that or what I do or similar, they have passion for the game of golf. They're passionate about it. So that is important. But yeah, just grew up around it, was a decent player, not good enough, obviously, touched on that. But then, you know.
I'm sure you have a mean swing, though.
No, it's pretty erratic.
Oh.
Every once in a while I square it up, but it happens less and less now. But yeah, just you know, after I finished playing, started a putter company with my dad, Toulon Design, and so we did that for a year, and then Callaway and Odyssey acquired our company, and I've been here since then and started as the Odyssey rep out on tour, working with players and have been out on tour ever since. So it's a passion and it doesn't feel like work when it's a passion. Absolutely. And so, you know, traveling out to tournaments every week gets a little old, but once you get on site, you know, it really is a dream job for us to be able to work with the best players in the world and help them get better and do so by highlighting the Callaway equipment that, you know, obviously we have a vested interest in.
Absolutely. And with that acquisition, was it more bittersweet or was it just like a whole new wealth of options opened up for you because you have this much deeper pockets and resources and you have this sophisticated team? Yeah. Did it just take you guys to the next level? Was it just felt like more of the same and now you just got a bigger family? How did that all work?
Yeah, you know, it was very much a mom and pop operation when we were sort of on our own, and then coming here to Callaway and just seeing the investment that we make in R&D here and really driving product innovation and technology and trying to give our players and all golfers really the best advantages that we can. So when we came here, it was just unbelievable to see that everything that goes on behind a golf company and the things and the testing and the R&D that goes on behind the scenes to bring product to life, it's pretty unbelievable to see and now experience. And you know, it's like I said, it's a passion. And so when you have more technology, more things that you can do to put into golf clubs, whether it's a driver or a putter, it's always exciting to be on the cutting edge and being on that team that is leading the way in innovation. So it's been a lot of fun being here at Callaway and excited for the future. And
you know, it's no simple feat to start your own company from the get-go. You know, how did you guys even get started? Did you or your father have an engineering background? You know, how did you guys even get into it in the first place?
Yeah, my dad has been in the golf industry for a long time and around product and product creation, and really our whole family has been passionate about putters since, you know, I can remember. And so that's something that, you know, growing up, I was one of those golfers that if I missed, you know, putts throughout the round that I felt like I should have made, I want to go find a new putter. It's probably not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing, but it's always something that, you know, I was driven like I can design something or we can design something that's going to be better suited to me. And you know, probably spent too much time doing that rather than working on my putting stroke. But again, it
seemed like it worked out pretty good for you.
In some ways, maybe. But no, that's really it. You know, just been around the golf industry, really knowing what other golfers like to see is an important thing. We've always had a pulse on what the average golfer and what tour players want to see, and that really drives the innovation. So just talking to players and understanding what they're looking for has really helped us, and it's something that, you know, obviously we've continued to do to this day.
I mean, it's just amazing. And now, so is this your workshop where you do the tinkering? Is this more for the rest of the team? You know, where do you stand these days?
So we do most of our stuff out there at tour events on the big tour truck. So we work off of the tour truck that travels to every PGA Tour event, covers some LPGA and some college events and Korn Ferry events as well. But that's where we do it. We have all this machinery, all this technology on the tour truck as well. So we can make all those adjustments out there on the truck. But yeah, when I'm in town, I come here, we work with tour players. We just had Adam Hadwin here today, who was working on the new Elite Driver in Fairy Woods, which went quite well from what I understand, which is great. But yeah, this is, I live here locally, so when I'm not out there traveling, I'm either here or at my office at HQ. So yeah, spend a lot of time here.
My last question for you is, what would be one part of the putter process and building in general that most people just don't realize or understand?
As it relates to putter fitting, I think this is something that's important that maybe is a little bit overlooked, but the actual look of a putter, I think, is very important. You have to have something that you enjoy looking down on, for the most part. There are rare situations where a player comes in and says, fit me for whatever you think is gonna work best for my stroke and I'll use it. But whether they want to admit it or not, they have to like what they are looking down at. So if it's a shape that is pleasing to their eye, they have the positive feelings, they're gonna want to putt well with that putter. And that's actually a big deal. If it's something that they're like struggling to look down at and they're like, I don't know if I could, they're already starting off on a bad foot. So I think that's super important. That's step one. I always talk about this, to tour players or to customers, where step one, the putter's got to look good because you got to want to pick it up. It's got to be something that excites you. Step two is when they set the putter on the ground, it's got to sit well. If it doesn't sit well and you're struggling with it and you can't line it up, then you're not going to hit a putt with it. And not only if you get past those first two steps does it even matter what the putter performance is. So that's when the whole fitting process comes in and making sure it's the right fit. But yeah, I always start with it sounds shallow, but I always start with looks, because if you don't like what you're looking down at, chances are it's not going to take many missed putts to go, I don't want that. And that's not what we want.
I mean, yeah, golf is already a hard enough game, and once you take the mental component, if you don't like what you're hitting, you're not going to feel confident in it.
It's sometimes as simple as that.
Well, Joe, that's all the questions I have for you today. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, you too.